Hello there, it's Chris Scullion here. Another year, another slightly late list of my favourite games from the past 12 months. I've been doing these videos since 2019, meaning this is the 6th one I've made. For the first time, however, I've really struggled to narrow it down to just 10 games, so this time I'm going to list the 15 games I love most in 2024. As ever though, the games I play, usually for review, aren't necessarily the big AAA titles, because I prefer to look at the AA and below tiers in search of hidden gems. As such, my list may be a little bit different from the Game of the Year list you might have seen on other sites. Of course there'll be some stuff on here that you'd expect, but maybe some games you wouldn't too. As with every year's list, there are a few caveats to bear in mind before we get started. As ever, this is in alphabetical order, not best to worst. I really can't be bothered deciding whether a game is my 11th or 12th favourite of the year. They're all great, so you should get them all. And again, before you even think about writing a comment saying this, I didn't forget anything. As I've already explained, the reason my list looks very different from most of the others you've seen isn't an attempt to be quirky or pretentious, it's just because I reviewed very few AAA games this year, and because this is my personal list, I can only pick from what I've played. So no, I didn't forget Indiana Jones, or Balatro, or Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. They're just all in my backlog and I haven't got around to playing them yet. Except for Balatro, there's no way I'm touching that because you know what will happen. That said, let's get cracking. When developer Signy went bankrupt 15 years ago, it's probably safe to say nobody expected to see the Another Code series ever returning. While we've yet to see a third entry, I'll certainly take these two remakes instead, because they breathe new life into two cult favourites. Another Code Recollection takes the DS original and its Wii sequel and gives them both a remake treatment, turning each game into an over-the-shoulder adventure. While there will be some who claim that the originals were the best, and that these new versions, with their new visuals, puzzles and story beats, don't quite match up to the initial impact the originals had, that doesn't really matter too much when what's on offer here is a great 15 to 20 hours of heartfelt adventure gaming. I really hope this leads to remakes of Hotel Dusk and Last Window 2. At VGC we chose Astrobot as our game of the year, and it would take some Simone Biles levels of mental gymnastics to come up with a good reason why it shouldn't be. Rarely does a game have so much creativity, polish and personality jammed into every crevice and cranny, and the resultant platformer is second only to the Mario series. The fact that Astro's Playroom is available on every PS5 console as standard does reduce the surprise factor by the very slightest degree, because in effect this is more of the same on a grander scale, meaning that initial surprise is no longer there. That aside, however, Astrobot is still a stone cold essential PS5 title, and one guaranteed to put a smile on anyone's face. The only major issue I have with it is how difficult it is to pull my daughter away from it. I was first shown Signy at a developer get-together in Edinburgh right before lockdown, and I was blown away by what I was shown. Created by just a few developers, Signy is an outstanding looking shoot 'em up that could easily pass as a AAA game where you're not aware there was an indie studio behind it. Such was its quality that Konami opted to publish the game, a brilliant vote of confidence for Keelworks, the team involved. If shoot 'em ups are your thing, you really should give Signy a try, because it makes genuine attempts to breathe new life into the formula with its clever energy shifting mechanic, which makes you constantly decide whether to favour shields or firepower. Signy would still be on my list if it hadn't been made in Scotland, but the fact that Keelworks is literally 15 minutes down the hill from me is a particularly delicious cherry on top of an already impressive cake. Digital Eclipse's interactive museums have featured in my past two lists, with Atari 50 in 2022 and the first Gold Master Series game, The Making of Karateka, in 2023. This year the studio released two more additions to its Gold Master series, and both are fantastic. Lamasoft, the Jeff Minter story, is a brilliant introduction to one of the industry's most eccentric minds. This was followed up later in the year by Tetris Forever, which tells the story of one of gaming's most well-loved series with a level of depth never before seen. The key to each entry's success is the fact that Digital Eclipse doesn't just whack a bunch of ROMs into a compilation and fire it out, but instead takes the time to give context with heavily researched timelines replete with interview footage, old magazine scans, as well as other above and beyond bonuses like prototypes, recreations and modern day remakes. We're certainly at the stage now where every time a Gold Master Series entry is announced, it's almost certainly going to be a must buy for those interested in gaming history. Capcom has been absolutely firing out retro arcade compilations in recent years, but this might just be the best of the bunch. Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection contains 7 games, including every title in its crossover Versus series, starting with X-Men Children of the Atom and working its way through Marvel Superheroes, X-Men vs. Street Fighter, Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter and Marvel vs. Capcom before arriving at the best of the bunch, Marvel vs. Capcom 2. The addition of the arcade version of The Punisher, which has never been officially released on home consoles other than a shonky Mega Drive port, is a delightful bonus in what was already an excellent compilation of classic crossover fighters. As someone who grew up watching The Wizard, I always dreamed of taking part in the Nintendo World Championships. Obviously never happened, and this cartridge isn't quite the same thing, but anything that celebrates Nintendo's past in a way that makes its older games more inviting to new players is always a great thing in my book. This offering plays a lot like the NES Remix games that were released on the Wii U and 3DS, and have players taken on a series of challenges for each of the 13 NES games featured. While there's a multiplayer component that lets you take part against others in speedrun races, I personally love that the game has some longer solo challenges in there, as well as a useful timer system which, for example, lets you better your Super Mario Bros. Speedrun time by racing side by side alongside a recording of your previous best time. It's an acquired taste, but those with an interest in the 8-bit Nintendo era would be wise to give it a go. Not content with releasing 2 fantastic entries in its Gold Master series, Digital Eclipse also gave us this brand new game created from scratch. Power Rangers Rita's Rewind is a retro-themed game designed to look like a 16-bit era arcade beat-em-up, and while its high-definition visuals mean it technically wouldn't have been possible back in the day, the game is so massively enjoyable to play that it doesn't really matter. Combat is hugely satisfying, with a brilliant combo system including air juggles and the like, while the addition of extra features like on-rail shooting sections and unlockable retro-style arcade games makes it far more than just a simple beat-em-up homage. If you're a fan of beat-em-ups and don't mind some bosses who are as tricky to beat as they were back in the day, this is one of the most enjoyable examples of the genre in recent years. Retro Realms Arcade kinda came and went without much fuss, but I really enjoyed playing through it. It might be because I've been a big fan of horror films for decades, and that its double bill of action platformers based on Halloween and Evil Dead meant I was already on board with the premise, but the fact that both games were partly handled by the retro platforming experts at Way Forward means they're fun to play too. What's more, if you own both the Halloween and Evil Dead games, you can cross over the characters, meaning you can explore locations from the Halloween movie as Ash and vice versa. It's claimed that more Retro Realms arcade games will be coming, suggesting even more horror movies are set to be represented and more crossover potential is on the way. I'm not sure how well those first 2 sold, but I'm hoping it was well enough to justify continuing the series, because I like to see how far it could be taken. When I reviewed The Medium back in early 2021, I felt that, for all the game's faults, it had a fantastic atmosphere reminiscent of the Silent Hill series. I remember thinking at the time that I really wished this studio would get its hands on a Silent Hill game. Lo and behold, in 2024 we finally got to see what that dream would look like, and the results were great. Bloober Team's take on the iconic Silent Hill 2 has more than its fair share of differences, but it still crucially manages to maintain the atmosphere and feel of playing through the PS2 original. A lot of people wrote Bloober Team off after early trailers of the game were a bit underwhelming, but I couldn't be happier that the team managed to turn it around and pull off that rare feat of changing the internet's opinion from a negative one to a positive one. This is a studio that's had a lot of criticism over the years, and hopefully this is the start of a new dawn for it. I get loads of emails from PRs every day, and the ones that annoy me the most are the ones that are clearly trying to put a specific idea in my head so that I'll mention it when covering the game. For months leading up to the release of the Smurf Dreams, I would constantly get PR emails describing it as a Super Mario alternative, which I thought was a wee bit ridiculous. I went into the game very much expecting to hate it because of this hyperbole, but instead I was hugely surprised to find out that it obviously doesn't match up to the Mario games, but it's still a genuinely lovely platformer. It doesn't put up much of a challenge, meaning kids will be able to enjoy it, but it does use the Dreams theme to come up with some wonderful ideas, and the music is outstanding too. I know many people have seen a Smurfs platformer on this list and instantly dismissed it as some throwaway guff, and admittedly I was expecting to do the same, but it really is a lovely, chilled platformer that all ages can enjoy. I've always been a bit of a cheerleader for Sonic Generations, so when I heard it was coming back in a remastered form, I was delighted. Then, even better, Sega saw fit to include a brand new second game called Shadow Generations, featuring all new content starring everyone's favourite mean and moody mascot. The Sonic Generations section is a straightforward visual upgrade, but not much really needed to be done to that in the first place, so I'm happy enough there. The Shadow stuff, however, makes the entire package a much better value for money, and Sonic fans, especially those who didn't play Generations the first time around, should really give it a go. One of my real pet hates is bad Scottish accents in games, and anytime a game features one I generally hold a grudge against it. This wasn't an issue for Still Wakes the Deep, quite the contrary in fact, as the game features some of the most brilliantly authentic Scottish voices I've ever heard. Of course, it also doesn't hurt that the game itself is an engaging walking sim with an intriguing plot, a believable protagonist, and some genuinely scary moments. It's set in an oil rig in the 70s, and while that alone can be an imposing environment, the fact that things soon start to go very quickly downhill with mutant beasties and the like makes it a short but engaging adventure that's well worth a playthrough. When you hit the 18th game in a series, it can be a bit of a struggle to come up with something new. This was the task facing developer Nintendo Cube, formerly ND Cube, when it started working on Super Mario Party Jamboree, and yet it managed to pull this off with a handful of brand new modes. The best of these is easily the Coupathlon mode, where up to 30 players compete online to run laps around the track by collecting coins and numerous minigames. Playing against a whole horde of other players at Mario Party is a brilliant new experience, and things can get really tense with places changing constantly as players mess up along the way. All the classic Mario Party modes are still in there, but the Coupathlon and various other new modes, such as the co-op Bowser Kaboom Squad and the new single-player Party Planner Trek campaign, make this one of the best Mario Party games in the series to date. Although I enjoyed the Tekken series back in the PS1 days, I've been a bit of a lapsed fan in recent years, meaning I haven't really got into many of the series' more recent releases. Tekken 8 changed that with an incredible story mode and a bunch of new combat features designed to make things more exciting. There's also a useful new system for beginners and returning players, which lets them learn how to pull off various combinations with just the press of a button. It's the sort of thing that has fighting game gatekeepers foaming at the mouth of rage, and let's face it, that's another plus point for me. On top of that, it looks absolutely tremendous, making it easily one of the best fighting games of this generation. No mean feat when you see how great the recent Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat offerings have been. Finally, if ever there was proof that writing can make a game, thank goodness You're Here delivers evidence in bucket loads. After all, if you were to strip away all of its northern humour and its brilliant visual gags, you'd be left with a pretty basic puzzle platformer. Once you add its personality, however, it becomes an essential slice of comedy gold that anyone with a silly sense of humour really shouldn't miss. The performances are all exceptional, the frequency of the jokes is admirable, and it's short enough to know not to overstay its welcome, meaning the whole package is a brief but brilliantly hilarious time. And that's my favourite 15 games of 2024. Please do like and subscribe to this channel if you like this video. I know I don't post on it a lot, but when I do, hopefully you'll agree it's worth a watch. My day job is working at Video Games Chronicle, VGC. If you want, you should probably subscribe to that channel as well. There's going to be a lot of videos on VGC this year in 2025, many of which I'll be recording and putting together. So if you like this video and you want to see more from me, VGC is your place for that. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you later. Bye bye.